All right. Well, hello, everyone. My name is Marissa Smith, and I'm with the University of Minnesota Alumni Association. And I'm very pleased to join you today for a 10 Things in 10 Minutes with Cathy Abene. And Cathy was recently featured in our winter issue of the Minnesota Alumni Magazine in 2023. Very cool stories. And so we wanted to follow up with Cathy to learn more about what she does, the impact she has here at the U, and some lessons that she's learned along the way in her career. So, Cathy, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. Thank you, Marissa. Yeah. Hi, I'm Cathy Abene, as Marissa said, and my role at the university is principal civil engineer. I work in the group called Energy Management, which is part of facilities management, and we deliver utilities to campus. We produce, in some cases, energy systems for the campus, and we also do a lot of energy conservation projects on the campus. So I think I have the coolest part of energy management, though, which is the water resources and civil infrastructure and civil utilities. So
That's great. So let's dive into that a little bit with question one.
Sure.
Can you tell me a little bit more about what you do?
Yeah, sure. So as I said, I'm a principal civil engineer, so I have a team, and it's a team of people in the field, and also another engineer that works. We all work together, and we basically manage infrastructure for the campus: domestic water, sanitary sewer, and stormwater management systems. We also do support projects and work on other land that the university owns all through the state, which has actually been kind of interesting. We'll have a role with stormwater oversight for projects happening anywhere on our 58,000 acres, I believe, that are owned in Minnesota, and any kind of work around wetlands. We get involved in that as well. So
That's a really expansive role. It sounds very interesting. I'm
it is.
curious for a second question. How did you come to do this work?
Well, I mean, it's sort of weird. So I have my degree from the University of Minnesota. Okay, alumni, right? So, but it wasn't where I started, and I actually graduated. I was a little bit older when I graduated. It wasn't the first thing I tried right out of high school or in college, and I think it was actually trying different things in college that directed me in this way. And I have to say, the story is, at one day I was just thinking about, what I was doing, and a voice came into my head that said, well, why don't you look into civil engineering, really out of the blue? And so I said, well, what is civil engineering? And then I answered my question, and I contacted the university and had some information sent. And it's just been a really great fit. So I don't know how that happened. But I'm really grateful it did, honestly. I haven't regretted going into this profession for a minute. It's one of the best decisions I've made. Yeah.
That's fabulous. Yeah, for some of us, it's always been planned out, and for others, it happens by happenstance.
Right.
You take a certain course, or you connect with a certain faculty member, or you just have this thought pop into your head, like you described.
Yeah.
That's great. So now that you've chosen this field, for our question number 3, what would someone outside of your industry find surprising or shocking about what you do?
Well, I think a lot of people take their built environment somewhat for granted, to be honest. And I think civil engineering is kind of interesting I mean, there are other, engineering disciplines, of course, but I mean, I think civil is the most interesting because it is our built environment. It's not really about the technology or, the energy systems in the same way, but it's how our cities are built and how they function. But I think that one thing that people maybe do find interesting is if you have conversations, and I get to have a lot of those conversations about water, and the water cycle, and where we get our water from, and where our water goes to, and how it's treated or not treated in the case of runoff and things like that. So of course we get our water from the Mississippi River, and all the water that we use, whether it's used for sinks and toilets, or it's runoff generated from building roofs, all of that lands back in the Mississippi River. And actually being right on the campus, right on the Twin Cities campus, really is a way to build that connection to the river. So I end up giving a lot of tours to student groups and things like that, which I really enjoy. And you just see people really connecting with that, how important the water cycle is. And anyway, so that to me is, I think, one of the more interesting things people seem to like to hear about when I talk about what I do. So
Absolutely. It's a integral part of our daily life, and yet
Huge.
for most of us, we don't think about it. It's just
Yeah.
automatic.
Yeah.
So for number 4, I'm curious,
Mhm.
what was your first job and what did you learn from that experience?
Um, well, actually, my first job was in manufacturing, but it was done as a not an internship, a student co-op. So I went to the civil engineering building, and they used to. This was in the olden days, and they had a binder outside of the office doors, and you could look through there. And a company was looking for summer help, and so I did it. It was a manufacturing company that's no longer in business locally. Um, that made reinforced concrete products, every little girl's dream, as I like to say. And so I went and worked for them in the summer, and then I did that 2 subsequent summers, and then they hired me when I graduated to be their regional engineer. Um, and it was manufacturing. It was a manufacturing setting doing product design for construction projects, if that makes sense. Yeah.
There's things about that story that the processes have changed since then, and then there's things about that story that still ring true. So the binder of jobs and internships is now online.
Right.
But the idea that if you like what you do and you make good connections with the people you're working with, that it could lead to something full time. I think
Totally.
that's an experience we still want for a lot of our students and new grads. So
Absolutely.
that's great that that happened for
See,
you.
all roads lead back to the University of Minnesota for me.
They really do.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I'm even wearing a maroon sweater. Yeah.
Right? Thank you for that. You're very on brand today.
Yeah.
So we just kind of talked about a scenario where you were hired, but I imagine over the years you've done some hiring yourself.
Mhm.
So what is the most important thing that you look for in someone that you hire?
Um, I honestly think I like to see a spark of curiosity.
Mhm.
Um, I think that's the top trait that I probably connect with, for good or for bad. And I've been fortunate. I actually, because I'm a woman in engineering and I didn't work always at the U, I worked in other places. In fact, I'm the first female engineer that ever worked at Hennepin County Transportation Department, and so since that time I've been on every hiring panel. I've been on 100 or 200. I have no idea, because I was the diversity. Think about that,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
So anyway, I've screened a lot of candidates, and so curiosity, and a strong interest in what the work is. That's going to be really important, and an ability to express that interest when you're going through the process of applying for a job, because it's great for the employer when they have engaged employees. That's the best thing you can get. So.
That's great insight. Great insight.
Mhm.
Okay, next question, a little vulnerable moment, but
Okay.
I'm curious to know if you could share a mistake you've made and what you learned from that experience.
So full disclosure, Marissa sent me these questions a couple of days ago. So I'm not totally in the hot seat here, but that was the one that I was having the hardest time with, because I mean, I made plenty of mistakes, tactical, or um, missed something. Actually, recently, I think last week, I looked at my calendar. I was like, "What? I didn't attend that meeting just last hour." Like, that's very unusual for me. So, I mean, mistakes happen all the time. But in the context of these questions, I'm going to start saying something that sounds bad, but I think it will end up sounding good. So, after I left manufacturing, I went to the public sector, and that was a great fit for me. I worked at Hennepin County, and then I went out to the city of Seattle for a few years, and then I came back. And when I came back, I went to the university, and that's where I've been since. But that's when I actually left kind of public works. And in some ways, for me, that was a bit of a mistake to leave a pure public works environment, because at the university, although we have 58,000 acres and the University of Twin Cities campus is massive, we only have 2 engineers. And actually, there's another civil engineer up at UMD, and we have 1 in traffic. So where I'm going is there isn't the trajectory inside of the organization. It just can't be here in
Mhm.
that sense. But here's the but. I also have had an incredible opportunity to learn about infrastructure in a way that I don't think many people do. So if I had been in, say, this at the city of Minneapolis or something like that, I would be specialized in one facet of all of the things that I touch. And then the other thing is, in addition, being in energy management, I have much more contact with the mechanical and electrical engineers, our energy conservation engineers, and the whole energy side of the house, that I have learned in a huge amount about these other disciplines, and how actually they're really great opportunities to work together. So we have projects on the campus where on the mechanical side and the civil side, mechanical engineering, civil engineering side, we've partnered to develop systems where we're reusing stormwater in a cooling tower system to make essentially air conditioning. So I would not have had those opportunities. So in a sense, I think when you're in your career and you're making a decision and a pivot point, you have to think about not only the day-to-day work you're going to be doing, but maybe what your long-term goals are, and if those are achievable in that environment, but also look for those happy accidents and those opportunities too. So that's my answer.
Oh, that's fascinating, Cathy, and how you've been able to take what was maybe an unexpected dynamic and make it into something more. That's
Yeah.
fabulous. For our seventh question, I'm curious, what is the best piece of advice you've ever received?
Um, yeah, and this is a big one, I think. And maybe especially for women or non-traditional people in a field like mine. So if you're coming into the field, and for women now and white women, it's not as common for that to be more of a less represented group, or a underrepresented group. But as you're coming in, if you're approached for an opportunity and somebody asks you, don't have doubt, don't second guess, just say yes. Say yes to opportunities. And if somebody's seeking you out to offer you an opportunity, say yes and work it out later in your mind how you're going to live up to it, right? That's my best advice, I think.
That's great advice, and one that's always a lot easier to give to a dear friend than to yourself. But we're going to hear your voice now from
Yeah,
now
there
on.
you go.
Just say yes. Number 8, what is your favorite campus restaurant or hidden gem?
All right. Well, I don't even want to tell what it is, because sometimes I can't get a seat in there as it is right now. But Border Town Coffee on 16th, I believe, between University and 4th.
It is truly a wonderful, cozy spot and always packed.
Yep. Yep.
Number 9, East Bank, West Bank, or St. Paul?
This is another impossible question. That's another nice thing about being in the utilities realm, like, because other parts of facilities management, they're districts and they work in a district, but I have to cover everything, every aspect, every corner of the Twin Cities campus. So um, the St. Paul campus is amazing. Actually, my team mostly offices out of there, so I spend quite a bit of time there. It has such a great vibe, and it's amazing to me that we have a agricultural a farm in an urban area. Um, no one agrees with me often on this, but I think the West Bank's architecture is just really amazing. I actually love it. I love how it represents its era, and even though it's this sort of brutalist landscape, I just think it's great. I also really like that it's a large, kind of a plaza area, lots of walking, and you can bike through. But the East Bank is where my primary office is, and I'm in Dinkytown, and I think it's just so iconic that I will have to go with the East Bank
But
campus.
not without some love for all of the campuses
For
all
real,
the way.
for real, yeah.
To close out, is there anything else you would like to share with us?
Um, no, I mean, I'm just glad. I hope that actually, that alumna, I think alumni actually are having an opportunity to actually learn about some of the things that the university is doing. I thought that actually the issue that was focusing on water just was so well done. Just great, broad coverage of all of the ways that the university is working on water issues for our state and beyond. So I'm just glad to see that the Alumni Association is really promoting things that we're all working on. That's pretty great.
Yeah, alumni are lifelong learners, a strong desire to stay connected to the
Mm,
university and the research and the great work that's happening. And
yes.
so there's real people behind all that work, and
Yep.
you're one of them. And we're grateful for the many, many ways that you serve our campus and keep it running in ways that go mostly invisible. Thank goodness. But for those listening who want to learn more about Cathy's story and background, there again, the Minnesota Alumni Magazine's Winter 2023 issue has a great feature about her work on campus, as well as many other issues related to water. So we'll link to that with the video when we share it. But Cathy, thank you so much for sharing your story, your career path, and career advice with us, with alumni. And I look forward to seeing you around campus soon and can hopefully give you a wave in person.
All right. Thank you. Nice to meet you too, Marissa. Thank you.